Think about the last time you shared something you created, a decision you made, an opinion you held, a piece of work you put something real into. And before anyone had even responded, you were already watching, waiting, reading faces, refreshing, measuring silence. Most people call this caring what others think, and they treat it as something to overcome, a weakness to push through, a habit to break. But what if the real problem isn't that you care too much about what people think? What if the real problem is that you've slowly stopped trusting what you think? Because there is a hidden cost to seeking validation that most people never name, and it has nothing to do with other people's opinions. It has everything to do with what happens to your own. There is an important distinction that most people never make. Seeking advice and seeking validation are fundamentally different things. Advice is information. It helps us see our blind spots, refine our thinking, improve our actions. Healthy people listen to different perspectives without abandoning their own judgment. They ask, what can I learn from this? And they integrate what's useful. Validation is something else entirely. Validation is when other people's opinions stop being information and start becoming the foundation of how we feel about ourselves. The question quietly shifts from, what can I learn from this? To, what does this say about me? And that shift, subtle as it is, changes everything. Because advice helps you grow, but validation, when it becomes a need, does something much quieter and much more damaging. It slowly transfers the authority to define you from the inside to the outside. You stop being the author of your own story. You become its reader, waiting to see what others write about you.
Here is something worth sitting with, honestly. Many people who constantly seek validation aren't lacking intelligence, capability, or potential. What they're often carrying is an outdated story about themselves. At some point, usually early, usually quietly, a belief took root. Something like, I'm not quite enough. My judgment can't be trusted. Other people probably see more clearly than I do. These beliefs don't announce themselves. They settle in gradually, shaped by criticism that landed too hard, by approval that was inconsistent, by environments where our worth felt conditional. And here's what makes them so persistent. The evidence changes, the self-image doesn't. A person can spend years learning, growing, overcoming, developing, and still carry the same internal picture of themselves they formed at 17, still measuring their worth against a ruler they were handed by someone else in a moment they've long since left behind. Validation doesn't become addictive because other people's opinions are so powerful. It becomes addictive because our own story about ourselves still feels uncertain. We reach outward for confirmation, not because we are weak, but because somewhere inside, we haven't yet written a story about ourselves that we fully believe. The real problem is rarely a lack of ability. It is almost always an outdated story we keep telling ourselves, long after it stopped being true.
There is a reason one criticism can undo 10 compliments. Imagine a large whiteboard, completely white, completely open, and in the very center, a single small black dot. Where does your attention go? Almost every person goes to the dot, not the vast white space, not the openness, the dot. The mind works the same way. It is wired by design, by evolution, to notice threat before it notices safety. Criticism feels like threat. Praise feels like relief. But the brain holds on to threats far longer than it holds on to reassurance. This isn't a personal failing. It is how the mind protects itself. But when our sense of self-worth is already fragile, when the story we carry about ourselves is already uncertain, this tendency becomes a trap. every piece of criticism feels like evidence confirming what we already secretly fear about ourselves. Every compliment feels temporary, a lucky exception rather than a reflection of truth. And so we seek more validation, not because it satisfies us, but because it quiets the doubt, briefly, incompletely, before it rises again. This is the cycle, and it doesn't end by getting more approval. It ends by questioning the story that makes approval feel necessary.
The hidden cost of seeking validation is not simply that we care what other people think. Caring about others is part of being human. That is not the problem. The real cost is more subtle and far more serious. When we make other people's approval the measure of our worth, our emotional life stops being our own. We rise when we are praised. We fall when we are criticized. Our sense of self becomes a weather system, entirely dependent on external conditions. We stop making decisions from understanding and begin making them from the need for acceptance. We spend more time studying other people's reactions than studying our own mind. Buddhism speaks of anatta, the teaching of no fixed self, not as a reason for despair, but as a liberation. The self is not a fixed, permanent thing to be defended and proven. It is something fluid, something that is always in the process of becoming. When we seek constant validation, we are doing the opposite of what anatta invites us toward. We are trying to nail down a fixed self, to make it solid and certain through other people's approval. But a self built on approval is never solid. It requires constant reinforcement. And the moment the approval stops, the self feels like it disappears. That is the hidden cost. Not what people think of you, but that you slowly lose track of what you think of yourself. So let's return to what we asked at the beginning. Why do we keep watching, waiting, measuring, even when we know, rationally, that other people's opinions are just opinions? Here is the answer. Because we are living inside an uncertain story. Not a true story, not an accurate story, an old one, formed in moments when our worth felt like something that had to be earned, proven, confirmed from the outside. And until that story is examined, we will keep seeking what we actually need to build from within. The answer isn't to stop listening to others. That is simply trading one extreme for another. The answer is to understand the difference between listening and depending. Advice should refine our understanding. Feedback should improve our actions. Neither should decide our worth. Here is what I've come to understand about validation. The less we know ourselves, truly know ourselves, the more we have others to know us for us. The more we have examined our own values, our own patterns, our own way of seeing, the less our identity depends on someone else's approval. Real confidence is not the absence of self-doubt. It is the presence of a relationship with yourself that is honest enough, deep enough, and stable enough to hold you, even when the approval stops. The next time you find yourself watching and waiting for someone else's response, pause and ask a quieter question. What do I actually think about this? Not what you hope they'll say, not what you fear they'll think. What do you think? Because the opinion you've been waiting for, the one that would finally make you feel enough, was never going to come from out there. It was always going to have to come from in here. And the only way to find it is to stop looking outward long enough to hear it.